back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host Hurricane H. New day, awesome show, great guest. Today's guest is really someone who has turned, I would say, pain into purpose and vulnerability into connection. Rylin Rossano is an author, wellness storyteller, and podcast host. I love it. I mean, her show is excellent. Whose work lives at the intersection of healing, identity, emotional well being, and the quiet experiences people often struggle to put into words. From navigating chronic illnesses at a young age to processing emotional challenges that didn't come with easy answers, Rylene chose not to run from difficult moments, but to understand them. Through her books, podcasts, and storytelling, she creates space for honest conversations about body, image, healing, self discovery, and what it means to come back to yourself. Rylene, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here. I mean, you got me up going early. Here I am. I'm so excited to talk to you and to even know you. I think the work you do is amazing. So, enough about me. You're amazing.
Well, no, thank you. This is all about you. This is your show. Uh, you know,
Are you sure?
it is. It is. It's amazing. It's not about us, right? It's really about our guests, at least for the work we do, but it's also about the mission, about what you do, and I think that people deserve to hear your story and the work that you do, and I think personally, I feel that your life, has giving you different cards, right? As we say, you were dealt certain, cards. We all are. We all get, certain cards to play with in this life, and we have to deal with them. But not everybody deals with them accordingly or handles them well, right? Now, your story started with both physical and emotional challenges at a very young, age. So, what was like growing up? I mean, and with your condition, if you can just share that with our audiences first.
A 1,000%. Well, what was it like growing up? So, as a kid, I was quiet. I did not like to talk, and I feel like that's so insane for people to hear these days because I'm a podcast host. But growing up, I was very quiet. School was really challenging for me. I had chronic asthma as a kid, which made school very hard for me to attend because my triggers were mold and mildew. And in South Florida, where I reside, that is everywhere. So it made me feel not only physically sick, but also a little bit emotionally behind. And when I was present in school, I felt like kids my age didn't really understand me or I felt different. But because of this, I think not only did I create emotional resilience, but I truly realized like people go through things that you often can't see. And you need empathy. That is something I learned a little bit later down the road. But because of my struggles with asthma, I ended up graduating high school at 15. During the pandemic, I took the ability, instead of playing video games like most kids my age at the age of 14, I decided I wanted to create a better life for myself. I became a yoga instructor. I got really into health and wellness, and I started taking extra online classes through virtual school, as well as doing the virtual public school I was attending. And I ended up going into my ninth grade year as a senior, and I was 15 and I graduated. I thought life was going to be amazing. I had a whole business plan for a fitness studio I wanted to get started on. I was going to pursue my bachelor's in nutrition, and I started feeling really unwell physically. I did get mononucleosis right before graduation, and doctors and researchers are trying to figure out the link between that and my now condition that I have, which is called autonomic dysfunction. So, pretty much, my autonomic nervous system cannot perform properly. So, in a normal human being, you don't have to think about blood pressure, heart rate, digestion, sitting up to standing, blood flow, circulation. But my body unfortunately glitches when it comes to those functions, causing me to faint, feel unwell, have brain fog, really low blood pressure, poor circulation, and overall a really feeling of not feeling the best. And this has been a challenge for me. However, when I was 17, when I got diagnosed, so it took a year for me to get diagnosed with this, which is really sad. I'll be honest with you because so many people struggle with it. 70 billion people in the United States have this condition, but it's so invisible and under-aware. Not a lot of doctors know or, research it in school. And it's frustrating because usually when you go and present these symptoms, doctors say it's all in your head, it's just anxiety. And that was really invalidating for me. And during that whole thing, right before I got diagnosed when I was 17, I left a physician's office and I was in tears. He said, it's all in your head. It's just anxiety. And I was like, no, I feel physically unwell and I'm very emotionally distressed because of the lack of representation for this condition and for people believing the way I'm, stating that I'm feeling. And I decided that day in my car, this silly little idea for a podcast that I had, was going to come to life because I said, if I'm feeling this way, someone else out there is also feeling this way, and they need to know that they're not alone in that. And in almost a year, my podcast went global. It has reached 5 million streams to this day. It's called Take Care of Your Body by Rye. And ever since that day, I decided to give my life to education, wellness, and representation for not only chronic illnesses, but stories. We all have a story to tell, and you have the ability to rewrite your story.
Wow. Well, Riley, may I call you Riley or Riley?
Yeah,
Which way do you want to?
call me
Riley is
whatever
good.
you want.
Well, well, right. First of all, I think everybody watching and listening right now, I mean, it is pretty impressive. I mean, there's two parts of this, right? One is, I mean, a lot of people would quite like, wow, you graduated at 15, so that's a very awesome place to be. Not everybody can do that. But on the other side, you have this condition that, to your point, it's not really as obvious,
Right,
as and or as understood as you said,
right,
around the world. And so even doctors, they tell you like, well, I think it's all mental, as you said, it's in your
right,
head. And by the way, yes, there is a little, we hear these things about like you may have some, ability to think about something, and it
right.
manifests in the body, but this is not it. I mean, you've obviously
No,
done your
a
work. You've
thousand
done your
percent.
yeah. Well, but that's right, and that's what people think. Like, so because sometimes it may not show in the test,
Right.
so they give you the wrong test, right?
Claim
So
insanity at that point, right? You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, it's not X, Y, and Z. I can't go out of the box. I'm just gonna decide that it's something mentally wrong with you. And you're right. It's unfortunate. It is, but keep going.
I know, well, it's but let's talk about that, right? I mean, look, you're in the Sunshine State, right? So
Yep.
so that's one of my favorite places to live. As a matter of fact, now we're gonna be doing some of that, Florida time, once a year, hopefully, between Dubai
We have to have
and
coffee
Florida. Yeah, well, listen, I started my life in Florida, believe it or not, in Orlando. So I kind of long time ago.
now.
and I and you're in Fort Lauderdale, right?
I
I think
am.
that's where you
I
are.
am.
Yeah. So we cruise out of Fort Lauderdale a lot of times. That's so I am always kind of that's like a heavy destination for us, either Miami or Fort Lauderdale. Sometimes Cape Canaveral, which will be that's where we'll be staying more or less. When we go to Florida. And but it is to your point, it's sunny and all the stuff. But you're right. There's humidity. There's mold. People
Right.
don't realize how bad that is, right?
Right.
And it does affect. We just did a show about how mold can really destroy your health, right?
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to find. Now, in your case, you had this condition, but then asthma obviously is difficult because the humidity and all the stuff makes it
Yeah.
worse.
Right.
And then now at 17, you get the full diagnosis,
Right.
right? That's what you said.
Yes.
By the way, I love what you said. You were pursuing, you want to be a dietitian, nutrition, stuff. You wanted to get your
I took a
bachelor's.
little 180 after that, but that is a huge, I think, part of why I'm so passionate about health is that ability that during COVID, I really studied how nutrition and physical health goes into hand in hand and how like I wanted to feel better physically. I started, eating better, yoga, and I got rid of my asthma and I was like, wow, this is insane. And I wanted to help people in that same way.
Well, hold that thought. That's something we need to share with our audiences. I mean, what I was going to say, but you still are doing it. That's the thing. Like, you might have not done some other stuff, but you're doing it to a different, version by doing the shows, by doing the actual, by writing the books. We'll talk about the books, shortly. But like even doing the work, as you said, I mean, you were able to get rid of asthma. And a lot of people are like stuck with it. I mean, it's like breathing heavy. You need to hit a pump and all stuff. And the more you get into these albatrols and things, they give you palpitations. Some of those, pumps are, they do that. So it becomes very difficult. But you were able to do this through nutrition. So you're passionate about nutrition, about health. Did serve you well, and it's serving a lot of people now around the world because it's not too shabby to actually get the global acceptance, and people are following you, listening to you, and getting guidance from you. And sometimes, you and I, we were just briefly talking before starting the show about how people may have zero problems in their life, or maybe some just standard stuff that we all go through, like the business, this, the financials one. But and people sometimes complain, and someone like you who has this condition that is there, and you're doing all this work and you're making it happen. And you're making the best out of the situation, really, driving positive energy right out of this whole experience. And that's there's something to be said about that, because I think it's a message for the world, and I like that message to come from you, as you and I were talking, is that they need, people have to sometimes be grateful for what they have, and and know that there's someone that may be suffering out there. And sometimes we complain about stuff, you know you have everything, and like, what is this kind of food, what is this kind of this, what is this kind of that? Some people may not have food to eat, some people may not have a roof over their head, and some people may not have clothes, to have. Some people don't have health, which is health is wealth. And, that expression does a lot. It's a real thing. So why don't you tell us, right, right, about this concept, like how you feel about this, like the idea of you're having to deal with all this. And by the way, it is exhausting. I mean, I was reading about the condition. It's not something that your body is really doing a number
It's
on you, right?
it's trying its best. It's trying its best, but I think, I have this personality where I have the ability to, like you said, make the best out of a really unfortunate situation. And before we started the show, I touched on this with you. A lot of people, they sit in their pain and they're like, this sucks, my life sucks, I'm just gonna stay stuck. And maybe they find ways to cope that aren't healthy, alcohol, drugs, or, other forms of addiction. And I think, you know, we all are handed really unfortunate cards, but you have to truly make the best out of it. Yes, you cry on the floor, maybe you eat ice cream and you say, this sucks. I really wish I didn't go through this. And then you get up tomorrow and you rewrite the story and you continue on with your life, because nothing good comes from staying stuck. You can't grow, you can't change, you can't live your life if you're going to stay stuck in the pain that you were given. And I think we all truly have the ability to rewrite the story. And it's so easy too to also, you know, I think forget how lucky you are as a human being. I mean, look, my nervous system doesn't work properly. Is that horrible? Yes. Do I hate it? Yes. But at least I have the ability to still think and function to the best of my abilities and exercise when I can and, eat food, and I have a house that I live in. I'm so grateful to have all of these, resources and this platform that I've built and the ability to write and to be an amazing friend and human being to so many others. And I think we often forget that. Yes, you're struggling, but instead of focusing on the struggles, focus on what you do have, because life is truly what you make of it.
Oh, that's actually a very powerful message. That is literally something that we need to take to the bank. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing that. Well, so here's the thing, though. I mean, you're living with chronic, and it's an invisible illness. It can be isolated. It can feel isolated, but do people understand? I mean, or they struggle understanding your condition? I mean, obviously, if someone doesn't know about it, right, they might think maybe you don't want to deal with people. Maybe
Right.
you just someone who's in I guess what is it, introvert, that doesn't want to talk to anyone and just wants
Right.
to hide behind. So how does that work for you? I mean, how do you kind of come onto the world
It's
in
like
your
you're
own,
reading my mind.
reading your mind?
You are, no.
Hold on.
But okay, this is so funny because I was thinking about this over the weekend, and it's something that for a while I think I was ashamed to open up about, because I don't really necessarily know psychologically why. Maybe because I know I'm so driven and ambitious, and I feel like if I tell the world I have something chronic that won't go away, they'll look at me a little bit different, and it's not the version of me that I want everyone to see. It's not the podcast girl, the author, the ambitious 19-year-old doing all this stuff. But I also realized, like, this condition is so underknown. There's no awareness for it, and me opening my mouth not only gives me the ability to save someone's life, but also spread awareness, so maybe there can be a cure for it. And I think at the end of the day, is it hard that people still tell me to feel better or get well soon? And yes, that frustrates me because it's a chronic condition. And when I was really not feeling well, 16, 17, I still had hope. Okay, maybe it's going to go away. Maybe there'll be a cure. Maybe some doctor will magically give me a pill and it will fix it. And I think over the last 2 years, I've come to terms with, this isn't going to go away. I have to adapt my life around it. And, instead of getting upset by people who might not understand it, I'm always willing to educate people. And that's why I have to push myself to talk about it on my podcast or on my Instagram or to my friends so people don't think I'm just ignoring them, or maybe I don't want to hang out with them. Let them know, hey, my body isn't performing the best it can today. It's not you, it's me. And I think education really goes far, because not only have I noticed that I've, made so many people around the world feel less alone with chronic illness or mental health struggles or body image issues, whatever it might be. And that makes me feel good and reminds me why I do what I do. I've also been able to understand myself more through this journey and through this platform that I've created on understanding bodies and health and wellness, because it's complicated. And do I know everything about this condition? No, it's really hard, I think, to understand. But I think the more that I talk about it, the more I research about it, the more I educate people about it, that's where we're going to go far with the condition and spreading awareness, so people realize, first of all, you're not your struggles, you're not alone in your pain, whether it's chronic, mental, or emotional, but also someone else out there sees you and believes you. And that is why I advocate so hard, because I know there's another girl in a doctor's office feeling invalidated, feeling, okay, maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's in my head. And then maybe she finds me on Google or Instagram or whatever, and she comes across me talking about my chronic illness or my experience, and she's like, okay, I'm not alone. And then she brings that to her doctor. So I think, you never know who is seeing your work and who it's reaching. And I think I've learned, opening my mouth is like one of my favorite things about me. I have this amazing skill to just keep talking. And through that, I think people can really learn and be inspired and be educated.
Well, I had to say, it's okay. Speak up. I think, sometimes, I mean, even the best experts will tell you, I mean, sometimes we need to speak up our minds and, kind of share. But really, to your point, there's not enough advocacy or knowledge about this particular illness. So therefore, the people that are experiencing it should be the best advocates, to start. I mean, obviously, you start a movement eventually, a lot of people will connect. You might have even built groups of people that have similar stuff, and now you're putting momentum together. You all can do the research together. Maybe someone can discover other practices. I mean, I was going to ask about maybe holistic medicine, or maybe ancient Eastern medicine, or even like Ayurveda and stuff like that, and maybe even just naturopathic stuff. So there's a lot of ways, I mean, that can help, maybe for the pain, maybe for the system itself. I mean, listen, you said you were able to simply get rid of asthma with the right diet and the right food, the right stuff, right? Now imagine, there's got to be something out there. I actually am a firm believer that there is a cure for everything.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, besides pharma, and again, I'm not going to open the can of worms with the pharmaceuticals. I mean, they do have a certain level. I'm listen, talking about asthma. I've had a bad allergy for the last 2 weeks. I mean, my eyes are still puffy. I mean, I had so much, you know, I don't know, like a post nasal drip and stuff. So it's like I'm coughing and everything. So finally today, after like 3 weeks of agony, I said, okay, I'm just going to give me a pill. So, sometimes because I tried all the other stuff, I mean, because the environment, there's dust and stuff, around, and now it's the season with pollen and all that. So and by the way, this is my first year in the UAE. So I guess my body is not adjust. I mean, I was in Jersey, different pollen. I'm here, different pollen. I don't know, different trees, different, stuff that gets you. So stuff changes in your life, but the idea is that there's someone that can probably assist you, out there. I mean, recently we've done a couple of shows about holistic stuff, about longevity, different clinics that do different wellness stuff, and never know what's available out there, because unless we talk about it, unless we are aware, we do the research, it's never going to happen. And I love you're open to that, right? You're not only vocal and really outgoing about it, and you're talking about it, and you're connecting with people around the world, and that's really what it takes. It's only a matter of time, I think, that you might cross path with expertise, that may guide you in the right direction. It could be, stuff that is simply, I mean, I've had neurologists, on some of the shows, and some of the best actually, that we've talked about, how the whole science of neurology works. So there's a lot of things out there, but you know what, they're gonna know unless you do the work, right? And unless but the best thing that we need to extract from you, what you just said, is that you have to adjust to the reality, and you have to work with it no matter what, and find a best way to actually operate within, and just try to live a normal life. and that's all there is. Now, normal is just an attribute that we use. It's a definition that nobody can actually give literally, because what's normal, right? What's normal
Right.
for me may not be normal for someone else, but we use that word very loosely, right? So at the end of the day, that's the problem that we have. Now here's the thing I want to ask. You kind of alluded to it earlier. I mentioned it again. The idea of nutrition, right? And you kind of did some stuff, to it. Would you mind sharing, with our audiences, what kind of, I mean, because I'm sure someone is like, wait a minute, you help yourself with nutrition and you got
Yeah.
rid of asthma. I mean, I think that's something I don't want to skip that, because it kind of, it stays in my mind. It's like, it's
No,
doing this nice little alarm going, it's an alert going right now.
I think it's really interesting, and last night I was actually thinking about this, so it's so funny you're, like, tying back to my brain and thoughts that I was having, is it's crazy how literally my entire life I relied on medication, like you were saying, and I think when your body gets so used to something, when it stops that thing that it's used to taking, like, I was taking so many, um, inhalers and albuterol and steroids, and it was insane, and that affected how I viewed my body, not only physically, but emotionally and how I felt, and, you know, asthma is horrible, it was impossible for me to breathe, it was really dangerous, and, it all goes back to taking care of your body first. It's important to do what you have to do, and if that's medication, then you strive towards that, and when COVID hit and everything went online, you know, I didn't really like, the first thing in my head wasn't, "Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna have to take medication anymore," but it was really interesting, I think, to see how my body was changing, and I was like, "Wait a minute, I feel better," and, I've always had really bad anxiety as well, and I just was, like, bored over the pandemic and, feeling really energized, the most energized I've ever been, obviously, because I stopped the medication, and it was cool, again, for my brain to realize, like, wow, like, my body is naturally, like, almost decompressing from something that I was on for, at that time, probably more than 10 years, and I was like, "Wow, okay, I'm gonna try yoga for anxiety," and I started doing, deep breaths and just yoga exercises, and I realized, like, my core feels so much stronger, and I was doing yoga every single day, and, I made that a huge part of my routine. I made hit workouts a huge part of my routine, and I started to realize, like, I had way more mobility, not only, but I was able to breathe easier. And then I was like, wait, let's, like, look into what I was eating. I've always been a healthy eater. However, I feel like when you're a kid, you kind of go towards packaged foods because that's what it's easy, it's accessible. You're in school, they throw a bag of goldfish at you and, call it a day. And I was like, I wonder what would happen if I start eating more whole foods, more avocado toast, more greens, more protein, more foods that actually make me feel good. And when I realized that, pushing aside the pharmaceuticals and the fact that I didn't need them, incorporating at least 30 minutes of movement, as well as 3 meals a day of whole foods, like whole meals that made me feel good, nothing packaged. Obviously, I was still drinking my coffee. I love iced coffee, that's my thing. So that wasn't going anywhere. But I really realized, like, when you gravitate towards foods that make you feel better, physically, you're also going to feel better mentally. And then, over 3 months, I looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, like, I have so much muscle definition. I can, move around better. I can breathe easier. And I'm just like more me. And it was really insane to see the progression throughout my entire life. Like, that was the healthiest I ever was. And I was like, I'm not going back to that. And that's when I really decided to move forward with graduating early. And I think that option really saved my life.
Wow. Well, right. I'm listening to you, and I think everybody watching right now and listening, it's a message to everyone. I mean, we do hear the expression that food is medicine,
Oh, it
and
is.
literally, food is medicine. And not only it applies to your physical, it'll, because again, when you're physically fit or feel right and feel better and feel good, your mental state is better, so that you have good confidence, you have good feeling, you're not lethargic, you're not bad, you're not just blah blah. You're like really energized, right? It makes a big difference. And so small changes. I mean, and you literally hit on the top things that make health. Really, or at least 90% of it is like movement and good nutrition. And so those are like, I think goes back to the basics for everybody that's watching. I mean, we have the nutritious channel, we have the iHealth channel. I mean, this show will be on all of those, and the Fit and Vap channel, and it's all about the same thing. So fitness, wellness, movement, health, nutrition. I mean, nutrition. All those lead to good health, and good health means better you. physical and mental, and the rest is history. You can deal with things better. You can
Right.
manage some of the internal, I guess, illness that you have, in a better way. I mean, I think you have a chance to fight better. But if you're doing the wrong stuff and you're getting all the bad ingredients in your body, you just add in, I guess, salt to what do you call that? Salt injury, whatever the expression
Yeah.
is. So it's bad, right? It's gonna just hurt. So for people that watch and listening, I think that's the basics that we all have to go back to. Good nutrition, good movement, or at least, a practical, movement on a routine basis. And yes, if you do this and you add things, maybe get rid of some of the drugs. By the way, I was going to ask you this, right? I mean, did you do any research to see maybe the medications you had for asthma, as you were younger, did have some maybe impact on what created this condition, or is there any
So
correlation there?
it's really interesting because I have done some research, and a lot of times, when your body is constantly in a state of fight or flight, and when I was dealing with asthma, it was very stressful, going to school every day and breathing in mold and mildew. I was very stressed out. So many things within that environment already caused my nervous system to be on high alert. And I have done research that because I was already, immunocompromised with asthma, my nervous system was already fragile. So when the time came when I was 15 and I contracted mononucleosis, my already fragile nervous system took another hit, and it couldn't take it. So there has been research done that people who have struggled with chronic illnesses before developing autonomic dysfunction are more prone to develop it when a viral infection gets involved. And I think that's really really interesting, and it shows why we need more awareness on conditions like this, but also why doctors and even individuals need to look at the entire picture. It's not just I feel crappy today. It's let's go back to my entire life. The history really does play a role in realizing it's all like this puzzle that you need to piece together and realize like maybe what you went through in childhood is why you're dealing with this medical condition right now. And I again, science is so important, and looking at, the picture and realizing like my body maybe already stressed out, and I probably would have developed this condition later on in life. I'm kind of grateful that I got it so young because I have the ability, I think, to learn ways to manage it better instead of like, having it when I'm 40 and, trying to be a mom or something. And I also have the ability to advocate, and my brain is so fresh and young, and I have so many ideas, and I can be creative. But again, I think you need to look at the entire picture and really go from the beginning and maybe think like, did I have any conditions that might have, led to whatever whoever's listening is dealing with? And for me, my nervous system was fragile with asthma. And then guess what? Mono came, and that was it.
I mean, listen, I
Don't you be
know, I know, I'm confident. I am confident that it will get better. And the way I see you, I mean, I'm following you. I mean, we've connected a minute ago. I mean, it's a long minute, on social through our good relationship,
Mhm.
and a mutual relationship. And frankly, it is impressive. By the way, I do want to say this, and thank you for being patient with me, because it took us what, almost 9 months before we got to the show, because it was just so
Anything for
many
you.
many conditions, well, that well, 8 months literally. The first time we got connected, then we were ready to do this, and then I had my mom pass in, and so on and so forth, and then the move. But anyways, but in this time you did not stop, and you kept going, and so on. And that's really it. I mean, no matter what happens, we have to keep up. But I'm pretty confident that the way you're working on this, the way you are going about it, the way you're really aggressive in terms of research and work and looking for things. It's only a matter of, again, I said it and I will say it again. It's a matter of time that you will find a way, and there is a way to reverse, this stuff. I think, and I'm not someone who actually, has a. I'm not a medium. I'm not seeing the future here, but it just I know trends, and when someone is really willing and has the strength and stamina to actually pursue whatever they seek, I think they'll get to the results. And either you're gonna find somebody or a group or stuff around. By the way, there's stuff all over around the world. It's not just in the States. Which, by the way, message is worldwide, which means you might get access to information and other parts of medicine that we might not even have access, in the United States. So I mean, the U.S. So it can be that thing. But you know what? You find also different ways to deal with this. I mean, one is writing. You kind of became a writer. You wrote two books already, right?
Yeah,
They're both,
that's kind of
you
my
know
thing.
one is what? Once upon a time, I survived myself. Is that the first
Yes.
one?
And then the
Okay.
second one is called Everything Was Here But You, and that actually talks a lot about grief. I think you might resonate with that one.
Well, let's talk the first. Let's break it down. The first
We'll
one,
go
second
in
one.
order.
So,
We'll go in order.
so you once upon a time, I survived myself. I mean, that is a just the title itself kind of makes a big difference. It's a big message right there. I mean, I
Yes.
think we all kind of need to relate to that somehow, right? Because we all kind of do things and maybe deal with things, and we have to survive ourselves first.
We
then
do.
we can survive the world, right? So what drove you to write that, and how does writing help you throughout your dealing with your health condition?
So growing up, I loved fairy tales. I truly watched Disney movies religiously. That was my thing as a little girl. And I think, dealing with all of this, I felt like so isolated from so many other people, but also myself. And I oftentimes wanted to write myself out of the fairy tale because I struggled so much. And, I didn't feel like I lived a typical teenager's life. And, you know, throughout all of my experiences from the age of 8 years old, I would write down in journals how I felt and, what I was enduring, whether it was bullying in school or, hospital visits with my asthma or body image issues or, feeling misunderstood. And I continued doing that through my teen years. And by the time I turned 18, I realized, coming from the confidence I had to start my podcast, you know, for everyone listening, if you're shy and quiet and don't think the world cares about what you have to say, trust me, they do. Please keep talking, writing, sharing your voice. Someone else out there needs to hear it. I wasn't your typical public figure per se. I didn't think that anyone would care what I had to say. And with my podcast, I almost got the affirmation people do care, people do resonate. And I really decided that I was going to take this project that I started working on when I was 16, and I almost didn't release it with the world because I had so many people, throughout my life, to be honest with you, tell me I'm too young, no one's going to care what you have to say. You shouldn't be doing this because you're only 15, 16, 17. And I was like, you know what? No, you can do anything at any age. Age is truly just a number. And again, I sat down at 18. I was like, you know what? It's time for me to collect all of these poems and writing aspects, edit them, revise them, and piece it together. And it's the story of my life and how I've overcome so much and not let it define me, and how you have the ability to rewrite the story. It's very fairy tale gone rogue. It's healing and it's beautiful and it's vulnerable and it's me, and it's made a lot of people feel less alone. And that's why, again, I do what I do with everything. But writing, to be honest with you, is my favorite thing because when you write something, you're almost freezing it in time, saying, this matters enough that I want to write it down. And maybe it changes or you don't feel that same way anymore, but you're almost freezing it so you can look back later and realize, wow, that mattered enough that I wrote about it. Or this person mattered so much, I wrote down this experience. Or I felt so powerful, so strongly about something that I wanted to write it down and express it. And that's what I love about words, because we can look back at them later and realize our growth and how far we've come, and also make people feel less alone with them. So I feel like writing is such an outlet for me to be expressive and heal myself and understand myself better, but also the world, because I have the ability to, so I've been told, to put words to feelings that people can't. And, I have a writer's brain. Everything's a story to me. Every concept, I can't just go to the grocery store and shop. Suddenly it's, a new plot, a new chapter. I'm writing things down in my notes, observing. And I think, my heart also ties to that. I'm very empathetic and I want people to understand themselves better. And writing is just a healing way for me to understand myself and help other people understand themselves.
Well, it's amazing 'cause there's a few things here, right? One, first of all, you started early journaling, right? So that's already kind of the beginning of writing, right? And putting things together in perspective. And I did state that you're a storyteller because you have that in you, and from your show, from your work, from the stuff, even your stuff that you present on social media has that feel, right? And so you can really impact people that way. And again, I've always admired writers and authors because, and I do a lot of shows with them, and even the CEOs and a lot of the doctors that that come on. A lot of them are also writers and authors, and and they do have stuff to offer to the audiences. And one of the things that that's powerful about writing in general, it's that it preserves history. Because today we live with 2026, and you know what? We have books that date back, a couple of thousand years old, right? And so just to show you that these people preserved, information, and because of that information, they get to us, and so on and so forth. Google would not have anything to use, and Chat would not have anything to use if there was nothing written in the first place, right? So it gets all that stuff and takes it, and that's really what it is. So the people that write these things, that's basically documenting things, and those things can help us physically, mentally, you name it. That's a tool, and so you're contributing to a legacy that is eternal, because I think books are eternal. And that's powerful, and the way you present those books, the way you write, and even the content of it behind, because you have a story and you have your own feelings. And not only, actually, I think it works for you because it helps you and calms you and gets you, going, because that's the other thing. It's like a passion, right? If you
Right.
do something that you love, you feel good, and if you feel good, your dopamine hit is good. I mean, I think even if you have pain and your brain is doing good, you might like almost overcome that pain, right? You
Right.
can beat it to a point, right? Obviously there's no one can almost feel what other people pay, feel, right? No, I mean, we can always say, oh, I feel your pain, but really, do I really feel your pain? No, no one
Right.
can. But the idea is that you're able to maybe, you know, push a little bit the limit, right? And overcome these things, slowly but surely. So that was the first book. By the way, another thing that's so funny, because you said you love Disney. Well, guess what? My first job was at Disney. I'm a
Wow.
huge, I'm,
Meant to
I'm a
be.
huge Disney, I'm a huge Disney freak,
That's
so
funny.
Disney
Wait till
is
you
like,
hear the names of my dogs.
really?
Pixar, Lilo, and Magic Kingdom.
Well, I worked all of them. So I mean, I was in Epcot, and then of course, I did my tours all over the Magic. I think yeah, I did all the three major parks. I mean, I didn't do the other stuff that came later, but it was all the Epcot, the Magic Kingdom, different parts of it. I've done, the Emporium, as I mean, I was a tour guide. That was what I did as a job, but I did security, I did crowd control, I did merchandising, I did those guys that sell the glow sticks, in Magic, in the by the castle,
Yes.
Main Street, USA. I was one of those guys doing breakdancing and robots, and I was
Oh,
doing good. I
you have
was
the
I was at the
personality
point.
to do that though, so I could see that.
Hey, listen, well, I was trained by the best. They tell you one thing: doesn't matter what life gives you. Once you're on stage, you're on stage. You better, smile and be, a nice little person and create the magic. And the magic, I think that flavor is good to have. And I think if you look at Disney in general, from Mickey, back in the days, it's all cheery stuff, like it keeps you going, keeps you happy, and so on and so forth. And you feel good about yourself. I mean, Disney had that whole thing about, like you see it on like all the movies. I say, I'm going to Disney. I graduate. I'm going to Disney. I do
Right.
this. I'm going to Disney, right? Because it became almost an iconic thing. And the reason people love that is because of the the outcomes that you get from there, like the experience, the memories, right? It's really true magic. I mean, you leave there happy, whether you work there or not. I mean, even the days I worked there, things were there. I don't know. I can't speak about it today, but I know it was fun.
Well, and I agree with you. And going back to maybe the business side of things, the entrepreneur side of things, look at Walt Disney. He struggled. People didn't believe him. They said you have a silly idea. He got rejected, and he kept going. And if he didn't, continue going despite his struggles and hardships, we wouldn't have this amazing company, this place that people go to feel less alone, to feel like a kid, to experience that magic. And I think that is something I often think about when I struggle.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's a buffer. I mean, I use Disney all the time in my quotes and discussions, because he's I do admire him as a leader, and also as a visionary, right? And it takes a lot to build the vision. And you know what? He's one of the examples of people who were rejected, as you said, that like you're gonna amount to nothing. You're not good. Like you like creativity. Some, I think, one of the jobs he had, somebody fired him because they said you like creativity. Now imagine that. you know,
You told
like
me
like
that. I'm gonna give you the middle finger and keep going because I love creativity. I mean, come on.
I really I want to be in like a fly in the wall with that guy when Disney made it. I mean, I
Right?
have to say, like, he'll be like, "What the hell? How ridiculous, would you feel about that?" But you
Like,
know what? That example, I've seen it with, I don't know if you've seen the movie Elvis.
yep,
His same concept. Like, someone did not see the value of Elvis when he was upcoming, and guess who he is, right? This is happening, with Oprah, with a lot of stuff. So in the business world, in just the motivation inspiration world, there's so many of those characters that we look up to in this life, that have been rejected, they've been told that they're no good, they're not gonna amount to anything, they're not gonna be successful, yet they're the people who actually change lives. I mean, generations. So I mean, and by the way, Disney conquered the world. And even the idea of, like, I don't know if you know the story. I mean, this is not really, but if you don't mind that just for a minute,
I'm ready.
he had people literally. I mean, the vision was like, Orlando was very quiet area in
Right.
Florida. It was just there's just lakes. I mean, and swamps, right? So that's kind of like, how the Central Florida was. This is like way back in times, right? And he did not announce that he's going to do Walt Disney World. That he was just Disneyland in Anaheim, right, in California. But the next thing he does, he has a bunch of people, kind of line up and buy different pots and lots and so on and so forth. And before you knew it, he bought all that territory. And I call it territory because you can't really buy on Disney property. You can only lease, right? And so it became Disney property later on. But I mean, look at the vision. Like, he saw that. First of all, Florida offers sunshine all year long.
Right.
uh, it's a pretty central, so even with hurricanes, they really barely get much of the damage that you get, for example, on the East Coast or the West Coast. So I
Right.
mean, it's you talk about in genuinely, like, thinking about visionary, all the way. I mean, the guy was just amazing. I mean, I know I've heard some critics about him, out there, but we're talking about all the positive here. So this is a
Right.
positive, but at the end of the day, that's the thing. Like, I can tell you this, like, I see you, like, you're gonna make it. You're young enough to make a huge impact in future generations based on the work you do. Maybe one day people will actually talk about you, Rylin. Oh, right, did this. She was the one that started this and did this research and worked and discovered this, created this movement, whatever. And that's how it starts. I mean, people sometimes you see this. It's funny. We just had a show a couple of days ago with our friend John Graham, Harper, for red light therapy, right? And we had a show a couple of years back, and in that show, it's funny, we had this discussion, like him and and I said that you will, get that, product all over the world. And it's funny, we were just talking about it a couple of days ago, and yes, now he is global. He's doing all this stuff, and I took a clip from that old. Now, again, it's something we talked about then. 2 years, 3 years almost earlier, and now it is real. So at the end of the day, like, visionary, is something that sometimes people have and they drive, and it's leadership too. Like, you're taking the lead. You're not, behind schedule and just kind of like hoping and moping that something is going to happen out there in the world, and you're going to have this, I don't know, whatever miracle happen.
Right.
No miracles. We act, we work, then things happen. There's
You
no
have to
something that
create it.
happens as a miracle. You have to create it. Yeah, you got to take the opportunity. So I mean, that was my little thing about Disney, because I mean, it is impressive, and it changed a lot of lives over the decades, and it still are doing that. So
Inspiring.
um,
It is because it's like, oftentimes I'm like, why do I do what I do? I hear the echoes of all the people throughout my life who've told me I'm not going to amount to anything or whatever it might have been. And I'm like, I could give up, but also me giving up isn't going to give me the life that I want. And I'm not going to help people. And I'm going to almost be selfish because I have these ideas within me that I want to share. And I know people need them. And if I don't share them, I'm being selfish because I'm not giving the world maybe what it needs to help change or create a better place. So you got to keep going always.
that is it. I mean, that's again, we can't go back, right?
Oh,
The past is gone. It's you got to move forward.
yeah.
You got to
And then
push.
and then the people who told you you're not going to amount to anything can tune into your podcast or you read your books or whatever, and then they feel, oh, I'm stupid for saying that. Why did I say that?
What it's amazing you said it, because here's the thing. I'm a firm believer. Like, people, you want to believe, you don't want to believe in what I'm doing. That's okay. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody's entitled to the way they think and see the world. Right? That's all good. But as far as I'm concerned, it's my reality. I make it the way I need it. I
Right?
will push through. I will. I don't depress myself about what happened, good, bad. Otherwise, it happened. So you can't do anything about it. What I can do is learn from it, so I can actually can I understand today and maybe predict how I can operate tomorrow. Which basically, some people say the definition of history is understanding the past, so to comprehend the present and predict the future, something of that. So it kind of stuff, and also living in the past is really more of a depression mode. Living in the future is an anxiety mode, right? I mean, there's two things, and people live between those two.
Right.
Sadly, I mean, that's what it's like. Oh, I'm worried about tomorrow. It hasn't happened, and just that's just how you think that things can go bad. We'll just think that things can be positive, right? So that's again mindset, right? We look at the numbers the way we want them, right? It's up to us. The
I'm
six out
I'm
of
just
nine.
I'm just gonna call you up when I'm having a bad day. You're very inspiring. You're my new mentor. Hope you know that.
Well, listen, this is my pill for me. Literally is my medicine. I use it. I've been using it all my life. It served me well. Listen, I have dark moments myself. Like I'm human, like everybody else. I'm not anybody special, but what I do is kind of like I don't dwell on things. I don't cry about things. I don't. It happens. Okay, so what did I do wrong? What did I do right? Let's learn what I should have done differently, and I apply that next time. And by the way, no matter how you plan, okay, things will happen. I mean, I keep saying this over and over. Murphy's law, whatever that is accurate. It happens. It's real. What can go wrong will go wrong. So again, once you establish that, then you're already prepared for it. So now let's see how I can minimize whatever that damage will be, whatever those outcomes, right? And so you do your best. You prepare as much as you can. You make it work to a degree. So yes, I'm not. I mean, again, that's what I love to do. I mean, I've you know, being in sales, also in sales you have to have motivation and stuff. You got to keep people pumped, and you have teams that you have to, and as a leader, you have to make sure that your operation is running, and it's not by control and command and control. It's all about power. It's more by having people respect you and admire, and you gotta help them and push them in leadership in the right way done. Is that you motivate people to get things done, and they feel they're part of some bigger vision and mission. They do it, and that's life for us, right? So again, that's just my 2 cents about that. But I believe in these things myself, and I apply them, and I learn from everybody. I'm learning from you today. I'm learning from every type of discussion I have. And by the way, this is like in my next thing to you is like you focus on conversations, and people, sometimes don't know how to do that, right? So how do you think, why do you think conversations are typically difficult with people sometimes? How does that work, at least in your experience?
I'm ready. This is such a topic I'm passionate about because I think so many people in this world love to talk, but we don't love to listen. And I think, if you really, if you really listen to someone, you might find the answers to maybe that thing that you're struggling with, or something that, you've been trying to piece together for a long time. And, instead of talking over someone, you need to give them the time to speak and really observe and listen to what they have to say. But I think humans, to be honest with you, we all want to be right. We all think we know the best answer. We have the best idea. We have the best vision, and no one is really open minded. And when it comes to me and the conversations that I have in my life or on my podcast or on Instagram, I want to give people the ability to share their story. We all have a story to tell. We all need a space to be heard. And I think, if you want to feel if you want to feel misunderstood, just go out into the public. But if you want to feel seen, find somebody who truly understands you. If that's a community, if that's a friend, if that's, someone who knows you on a personal level. And I think, instead of letting the world tell you who you are, you can listen from other people and then realize who you are. I think people are mirrors, relationships are mirrors. And if we really listen to people, we will figure out things about ourselves, and people can teach us about ourselves. But no one wants to be open minded anymore and listen and, you know, understand problems and things that are vulnerable. It's so interesting to me, and you and I will probably talk about this later, but people crave vulnerability. However, it makes them uncomfortable. And when I sit there and I talk about, my emotional pain or my books or my podcast or whatever, it's so incredibly interesting who resonates with it or who leaves. And I'm like, why are we unfollowing me? And then I'm like, oh, people can only meet you as far as they've met themselves. And a broken mirror isn't going to judge another broken mirror. It's going to judge the regular mirror because it shows them where they need to grow to shine in whatever way that they're shining in. And people are going to avoid things that make them feel uncomfortable. And I think that's very, very interesting about people and conversation is not everyone can meet you where you are, and not everyone's supposed to. People, love coffee. Some people like tea, and you can't convince the tea lovers to like coffee. So that's my take on that.
Well, that's pretty powerful, by the way. I think I'm going to use some of that stuff.
Good.
You
You
just,
should. You
I
have
love, I
my
love that
full
whole.
petition.
Yeah, I'm gonna. You have to TM there, trademark that stuff,
Yeah, you
right?
do.
But here's the thing. Really, it's powerful stuff, and I love the analogy. Like a broken mirror, can only judge the straight mirror, the good mirror, right? And but that's the thing. I mean, people always like to judge, and people will judge regardless, and people will decide the way they see things because, I made it's like I don't know, epiphany, whatever it is in my life is that it's very simple. Everybody is right. See, and people are going to look at me like, what the hell are you saying? Everybody's right. You're right. I'm right. Even when you're wrong, you're still right because you're right based on your point of view. You're right based on your set of data that you have. The information you have is what you base whatever your comments or decision, or whatever the outcomes that you are coming up with, right, in your life, right? So you're right. So we have into three discussions here with people, like let's say in a group, and everybody's like, sometimes we debate all the time, right? But frankly, everybody's right. So I stopped, disputing and fighting and arguing. Yep, yeah, we agree to disagree. You're right. I'm right. Doesn't
Right.
matter
Right.
because really it's simple, right? I don't have to judge you because I know already you're coming from a limited maybe set of information, and therefore that's how you see it. Or maybe you're looking at it based on your experience, and that's okay. Someone who has a different set of experience will probably see it differently. It's very simple. Someone who's had a tough life, is going to see life differently than someone who has always an easy life, because they haven't experienced that, right? So it's based on the experience. I still believe that we all have our own. This is all like, I mean, it's going to sound funny. I refer to the Matrix all the time in some of the discussions because I believe in it. I believe that this world is kind of we project ourselves into this world, and I mean there's the I mean obviously I believe in religion, all the stuff. So there's creation. That's me. I believe in we are creations, and we have a system and so on and so forth. But the way the system works is that our internal self, which is our soul, our true identity, right, kind of interacts with the world through this avatar called this body, right? And that's how I look at it. So we come across other folks, in a particular time period, very similar than when you see a movie and you have maybe a different cast, right? Some have a minute in the movie, some have an extra role, some have a primary role. You see them every day. And that's what it is. So some people are like primary, guests or casts on your, reality. Some are just guests that will pass by and they disappear. And it's a choice, and vice versa. And we are just their guests in their cast and their replay, whatever that particular dimension or movie that they have with this set or whatever their reality is. So when you start understanding this concept, at least I'm in my way, it makes me feel a lot easier about dealing with people and not having to stress about things, right? Because I understand, where they come from. Now, do I get angry? Of course I get angry. Some people would literally, I would, if it was permissible, I would not be very pleased. They would not be very pleased with my outcomes with them. But, you know, I take the high road, right? Sometimes, but sometimes people push your buttons, right? And it's hard, right? And so you again, we just did a show about how to choose how to choose to show up, right? So we choose to show up in a different way, right? With different people so we can actually get the best of the experience. Now it is a choice, right? We make things happen. And you're right, people don't listen, because they're not willing to listen.
Right.
That's the thing. Most people, they already cup full who have full, so they already have what they have. They didn't have half full. Actually, they're full. There's no room for more. I mean, they pretty much topped out. So that's the problem, right? Can you do anything about it? No. So
No.
either they have to let some stuff go, whatever the fluff out, and maybe fill in with some good nutrients, right? But that's the thing. Not everybody has that ability,
No.
and it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about that. So that's the thing. Don't dwell on things that you cannot change.
No.
You can only go ahead.
I agree. I agree with you.
All right. Well, so right. I know where the time is ticking here, but your second book,
Ooh,
quickly, let's talk about that because that's a new book, right? That's
that is
actually alive
that
and
is
kicking.
she's alive and she's kicking. And that that's really what kind of ties back to what you just were saying. I think this book really touches on, a lot of ambiguous loss and love, loss, grief, this weird feeling of you're building this beautiful life. Why does it feel like something or someone is missing? And I got the idea for this book because I was standing in the middle of my first one. I was at my book signing, and, a relationship that I truly thought meant the world to me at the time ended. And I was like, oh my God, this sucks. Like, what do I do with this? And I was standing there and I was like, everything was here but you. And I love that title so much because it doesn't just have to be about, a loved, a loved one or a relationship. It can be about maybe everything was there but yourself, or maybe everything was there but younger you, or everything was there but your dog that passed away. And this book really touches on, again, a lot of grief, a lot of, missing pieces and feeling like something might be missing when in reality, spoiler alert, maybe you are the thing that's missing. And you need to really decide, like, what kind of life do I want? And I think oftentimes, again, we are what we make of our life. If you want to have a good, fulfilling life, you have the ability to create that. And this book really answers some of those questions that we often think about at midnight or at 2 in the morning. And it touches on, maybe something can look good, like a shoe. If a shoe doesn't fit, it can look beautiful, but it's not going to work for you. And that's what I love about this book so much, is it talks about letting go. And you can love something, but maybe it's not a good fit for you, and that's okay. And that book really just affirms my readers that it's okay when things don't work out. It's okay if someone left your life and maybe you didn't get the answers you wanted, because maybe you were meant to write the answers yourself. And that book, again, it's self-identity. It's exploring, who are you without a relationship or without something or someone in your life. And it's okay to be vulnerable and sit with those feelings and that emotion. So it's my favorite book I've released, because whereas my first book, it's relatable for me in a sense of, that was, the first 18 years of my life. This one is something I think I will always relate to, because as I'm building this career and establishing myself, I often feel like, why does it feel like I'm missing something when I have probably what people dream of having with this podcast and these books and my name on Google and, these events I get to attend. And I think people often think being successful or being well known will heal everything, and this book really shows you that it probably won't, and that's okay.
Well, that's a whole different topic right there. you know,
That too.
I- thank you for bringing that right. It's so this I think this delusion, I would call it delusion of fame, right? I mean,
Right,
a lot of people are living in that, the idea of like, I need to be famous to be someone.
right,
Okay, and it's funny because I think everybody is famous,
right,
and maybe someone can say, Hurricane, I think you're just losing your grip here, but that's okay. If they think that way, it's all good. Yeah, you're not gonna hurt my feelings that way. But here's the thing, right? The reason I'm saying this is like right? You have your entourage, you have people who know you, right?
right,
And that number could be a small number, could be a large number, right?
right,
And everyone has family members, they have their entourage, maybe smaller, but they're famous in their entourage, right? So they
right,
have their clique, right? And so all it does is that we're basically extending, our clique. And by the way, extending it to a vast number doesn't mean that these people love you. That doesn't mean that these people really care. They might just because you have a name now that they want to kind of connect with you somehow, right? But
right,
that's all there is. And so is there a win in there? Probably, yes to some, no to others. I always say this: I'm a nobody to many. I'm somebody to many. As simple as that, right? So whoever wants for me to be their, person, I'm there. Whoever doesn't care, it's okay. And so it's not a race. That's the other thing. People are like, like, I mean, we hear this now in social media a lot. I see this all the time. Oh, number of followers, number of this, number of that. You know, I'm only here for impact. You see, that's how I look at it. A lot of the guys that and the gals in the history that made a difference and who left legacies to us that we use today don't even didn't realize what they had then, right? Because they died and no, I mean, talking about Da Vinci. I mean, he didn't know that the Mona Lisa is going to be worth what it's worth today, right? Yeah, he died, right? I mean, he's gone, but that piece of art is left behind his legacy. So maybe today I'm not famous, right? But in 10 years from now, 100 years from now, maybe I'm history. It doesn't matter. Maybe I'm not. Who cares? The idea is what kind of impact I'm making. You said it, best. You're doing this podcast, you're changing lives, and you are making connections worldwide. and that's it. How many people have you impacted? I mean, you're talking about, you mentioned the million streams,
Well,
but
I
guess
mean,
what?
think about the people that aren't telling me that though. And that's what I often think about. There's probably so many people in brief interaction who I've impacted that I don't even know.
That's but right. That's really what a true impact is. Like, we don't. I don't have to get a signature for everybody to, send me a message if you got an impact, right? I mean, let me get proof of work here, like a proof of life. No, I don't need that. The idea is that I know what we're delivering. Let's say this message, this show, right? We're putting information into the world. I think most, it's all positive. It's about, really understanding yourself,
Right.
building, good, confidence, and believing in yourself, believe in the future, and work positive towards better things, no matter what your conditions and circumstances. Right? That's kind of like the condition we're talking about today. So this message can resonate with quite a bit of people around the world. Doesn't matter what their culture is. Someone today literally can be having a real bad day, and they're gonna listen to this particular hour, and it's gonna strike a note there, and like, ooh, that's what I need to hear. And you don't know who that is. And
No,
frankly, they might never connect with you in real life, right? But you've already made that change. And we use that. I use that. I mean, there are people that I refer to. They don't like, we talked about Walt Disney. He's dead a long time ago. He doesn't know about us. He didn't know about us. But we're talking about him, right?
and his
so
ghost
so
might be in our room. Who knows? You know what I mean? I mean, that's a little
well,
scary. But
yeah, well, but you know what I'm saying. Like, the idea
right,
is, like,
right,
there are people out there, out there. We quote people, that are, that we take their value, right? What they had to offer and their legacy, and we use it in our discussions, in our principles, in our, concepts, and we apply some of this stuff to, in our daily lives, and it suits us well. It helps us, and it builds, momentum for us, and makes a huge deal for us. And that's all there is. So, again, I love the idea of your book is really resonating better. It's changing the dynamics, and it's definitely core ideology that can change people, because, again, books are legacies. What you put, it's for you, but also for the world to kind of take note from it and maybe apply things that can help them. Now, you also, do the podcast, and you're doing those shows, and the shows are, I mean, this is the new thing, right? That's the other thing. Like, this whole discussion about podcasters and podcasts. I mean, there's a lot of different podcasts out there, right? And, back in the days, we had radio. So you have talk shows on the radio, and you have talk shows on TV, and that's all there was, right? And so that's how we grew up. At least back in, before the podcast began, the whole, you know outset, like with the online, with the digital media and stuff like that, it became easier, and people can just do stream and do talk shows and record them and send them to the world. Now we have platforms where people can listen to those,
right.
because not everybody can be on the radio. That's the thing,
No,
right? Only a few people can be on radio.
I
Now,
don't want to
I
do
mean,
that though. That's too early. I don't think I could get up that early. You know what I mean?
well, again, radio, I mean, it could be 24/7, but you're right. There's a lot of early morning, late, like, listen, the late shows, right? I don't know if I can be at a studio at 11 o'clock, and get spruced up, looking good, and in
No,
front of lights for 2 or 3 hours, between getting ready and push. But that's okay. Some
right,
people like that. Podcast is also somewhere where people don't realize the value of this is the expertise behind. There are millions, if not billions, of experts around the world. Maybe 0.001% will make it to the mainstream TV and radio, right? But the rest of the experts are out there, and they're in the wind.
right,
Podcasts do bring them together and bring these experts to the world. So now that information is available readily to anyone that's willing to listen. It's becoming the place to go. It's becoming the place to get resources, right? It's like YouTube now. YouTube is the go-to place, right?
right,
Even social media in general, although social media has a lot of, you know, I guess, information that is disinformation or misinformation, but that's another story, because again, there's this whole quest onto getting, numbers and views and this and that, the other. But the real world, which has value, it's irrelevant. It's about what we're pushing out, the output, and the value that's presented, and what people can get from it. Now you're building that. That's I mean, how long you've had the podcast for now, right?
2 years.
So that's 2 years. And how many lives you've touched already in those 2 years. So imagine 10 years from now, imagine 20 years from now, imagine your grandkids, listen back to your shows and like, hey, that's my grandma. I mean, just think about that vision, right? Like, in the future, like, how many people would you touch, and how many people will actually listen to this worldwide? That's the other
So
thing. The
many.
beauty of this is not local.
Right.
Amazing.
It's wholesome because, again, I started this platform. I mean, as you can kind of see, probably sitting with me for what are we at, an hour? It's like I have this brain that has all these questions and ideas, and I was like, I have questions. If I don't know the answers, I want to bring these experts on who can share with my audience. And I think you learn so much from talking to someone, especially a professional, about your body, about yourself. And, my podcast is such a safe space for so many people. I think there's an episode for everyone. And it's really beautiful how you can learn so much from someone else when you really, really listen. And, you're right. So many people, young people, older people, even want to chase these numbers and get followers and, you know, go viral. And I'm like, does that matter? Because are those people really going to care about what you're doing? I would rather maybe have a smaller community than people who don't actually care or resonate with what I'm doing. And I think at the end of the day, you have to realize, like, we all put our pants on the same way. I put my pants on the same way Taylor Swift does, and Ariana Grande and Sabrina Carpenter, and all these other celebrities out there. And realizing that we're all human beings just trying to make an impact in whatever field we can really changes your mindset on that. And conversation's important, music's important, art is important, and creativity is important, and you need to express it. Even if it doesn't blow up or go viral, you need to fuel that aspect of your own life. And I've loved what I've created with my podcast, but also having the ability to talk to people and inspire people and give them that episode that might make them feel seen. If I don't do this, I can't make someone feel seen, and I know I have the ability to at least change one person's life.
Right, right. Yeah, it's funny. You made me laugh, for a second there because, you know, here's the thing that I think, it's a message to people watching and listening right now. And, thank you for bringing this up because this is something that always kind of plays in my mind.
Okay.
Well, all the people that we look up to, right? If you look at their stories, they were not celebrities until they became celebrities.
Right.
You see, so they're still are normal people, but they just are known to more public, right?
Right.
But so some people like I only talk to celebrities, I only want to do this with celebrities. Well, what about the rest of the world that has potential to become a celebrity and eventually they will become celebrity? Someone has to. Again, we talked about Walt Disney, the guy that actually declined him because he thought he liked stuff. The guy with Elvis. I mean,
Right.
I just watched the movie with the Michael Jackson movie. Awesome. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, it kind of depicts the story and stuff. Like obviously it's a movie, but you see some stuff, right? Like and you see this person who had this vision. They started small in the middle of nowhere in a town, right? In poverty in a way, and then they build themselves to do that. It was hard work, whatever. Yes, there's behind scene stories and things like that that could have been avoided. But at the end, every one of those folks that are out there that made it, to the stardom level, they started their journey with one dream, one step at a time, one missed, song, one missed movie. Some of the celebrities we watch on TV every day, on the big screen movies, right? They started in extras in movies, doing commercials, right? And yes, now they are the icons that we look up to and watch them, right?
Right.
I mean, some people started their career midlife. I mean, Harrison Ford, I think it was at 40 or something when he started. So when you start thinking about these things, you realize that we should appreciate people for what they are and who they are. And yes, those that have made it, great, we support them. Those who haven't, well, let's support them. Maybe there's thing, and we anybody has a chance to actually do that, and we should all champion these people. We should all cheer up the folks that are out there that are trying to do something. Here's the thing: you're either trying or you're not doing.
Yeah.
So I'm always going to cheer up the people that are trying to do something. They're working, whatever that is, small, medium effort, whatever, but they're trying. But compared to someone who's just sleeping and criticizing, that pisses me off sometimes. Like I sometimes like, what's the point?
Right. You're
Yeah, I mean,
judging me while you're sitting on your couch and I'm shining in my light. Like,
yeah, right. I mean, think about it. Don't you see that in comments sometimes? When someone puts a comment. I
yeah,
mean,
no, someone
let,
goes, someone told me the other day, and you're gonna laugh at this. They go, "What do you think you are, a doctor?" No, but I've hanged around enough that I know a little bit. I mean, come on.
well, here's the thing. Obviously, you're not a doctor, right? You're not presenting yourself as a doctor. You present yourself as a human with a condition who knows about her condition that is trying to do something about advocacy and
That
sharing a
speaks to
message.
doctors. That speaks to doctors. So, I mean, I'm not claiming I'm a doctor. I'm learning from other doctors and I'm quoting them if I talk about what they're talking about. But it's like, people, some average Joe can't tell me I'm a bad podcast host. What do you know about podcasting? You're probably sitting on your couch eating chips. Like, hello?
Well, here's the thing. Let's play that scenario. Okay,
Okay.
I'm a podcaster. I'm a bad podcaster. Okay,
Okay.
what does that mean to you? You don't like what you say. You don't like what you hear. Why are you listening to me in the first place?
Right.
You
Hello?
you you
Thanks for
wasted
the
you
stream.
wasted you wasted your time.
And you gave
Don't
me a
you have something?
stream. So cool, like
I mean, well, really, right? That's the thing. Like, why people do that? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, this human condition, the mental health of humanity is kind of weird. And by the way, we do have the mental health show with Dr. Ham. We talk about these things all the time, and it's just the way humans are. Like some of these, behaviors are phenomenal. Like, when you start thinking like how we operate. But like, why would I bash into your world if I don't kind of subscribe with your message? I don't vibe with your frequency. It's all good. It's okay. I mean, every to each his own. It's like, radio, right? Music is a good example. You might love, Latin music, rock music, rap music. I may not. Vice versa, right? I might rock with country music and maybe some disco music. I don't know, whatever, some international folk music. Everybody's different. So I'm not going to judge your style because you choose a different type of music that you want to listen to. That's you. It's your identity. It's what drives you. We're different. So we talk health, we talk oneness. Some people talk sports, some people talk politics, some people talk religion. Everybody to each his own. But that's the thing. I think we should as humans in general, watching and listening right now, at least our audiences, folks, the better if we want to be better humans, I think we should stop judging people. We should start supporting people. And if we can't support them with anything, we support them with our quietness. Let's just be quiet and stay away. That's a simple way to actually support people, right? So right. I know we've passed our hour, but so where do you see yourself in the next couple of years? Because I see you places, but now tell us what that vision looks like.
Honestly, I think my main goal is to keep impacting people. I see many more books. I mean, I'm not even 20 and I already have two out in the world, and I have so many ideas coming to mind, and I'm just so excited to really put them out on the page and get them into the world. I see myself fighting for other people who maybe don't feel like they are confident to use their voice. I see my podcast expanding, and I think in the next 10, 20 years I'll be a practicing psychologist. That's what I'm getting my master's in right now, and I'm rooted to help people. I think that's why I'm put on this earth, to use my heart, to use my brain and help people understand themselves and what they're going through. And I'm just excited to build this life and this brand and keep doing what I'm doing and making people feel seen, because I'm not doing this to be famous. I'm doing this to give people who don't have a voice, a place to shine, and reminding them they're not alone. And that's why I post, that's why I podcast, that's why I write, to remind others they're not alone in their pain. It doesn't define them, and they can overcome whatever they're going through, because I have and I continue to do so.
Well, thank you. I mean, yeah, there's the words cannot really describe, what you just described here, at least from my part, because if there is a definition of success, I would add your value, your description here to it,
Aw.
because really you're at a younger age and you're already doing these things that are impactful. Many people at your age have not even started to think about how they can even impact the world. They're just working on themselves, right? You're doing that while you're making a difference, and that's actually brilliant. That's actually amazing. I think you will make a dent in this world. You will have your own momentum and be in a pedestal. People would appreciate you over time. And I love the mission that you're trying to get the psychology, because I think the more we understand how we operate as humans, we can help better, our surroundings and our fellow humans. I think, and by the way, I love this idea of humanity. Then you versus me, colors, race, religion, all this stuff. I think we all are part of the same little village called this Earth, and we should just kind of work with each other to better ourselves versus the other way around, or just be destructive, right? So thank you for that, right? And so now here's the thing: someone who's listening right now who feels unseen, misunderstood, what would you say to them?
You're not alone in that, and it doesn't define you. Better days are coming. I'm proof of it. You having a bad day now just means you have the ability to have a better day tomorrow, and you can learn from every emotion and experience. So maybe take the time and write down what you're feeling so you can look back at it later and try and understand it better. But I'm sending you hugs and love, and just know you're not alone in that, and what you're going through now will teach future you a lot, and you add so much to this world, even if you can't see it.
Listen, I think that's a very powerful message, folks. If you're watching or listening right now, this is the end of the show. Rye, I want to thank you so much for being with me here, and it's a very powerful chat. And I think the stuff that you shared today can change lives, tremendously. So thank you. And so that's it, folks. This is the end of the show. I'm Hurricane H. Hope you had a great time with us, with Ryan and myself here, and having fun here. And so we'll be talking soon. Again, new day, new show, topic, new guest. Bye for now.